This all is clearly rooted in a lack of common understanding between the U.S. and Iran over what exactly the Strait of Hormuz is after that MOU went into effect. President Trump now saying this morning that the U.S. Will reimpose the blockade that had been on Iranian ports during the heat of the war. This had been one of the last remaining components of the memorandum that had remained intact. And so you can see how this agreement is now coming apart piece by piece. The president wrote on Truth Social that we are reinstating the Iranian blockade, so named because it is only stopping Iran's ships or customers from entering or leaving. And then he says that all other countries will have fair and open use of the strait. And then he goes on to say that the U.S. will be imposing a 20% fee on all cargo shipped. It's not clear who will be paying that fee, whether it's the shippers or whether it's countries who are allowing ships to go through, and that the U.S. will help navigate this waterway for this fee. Now, the president was on Fox News a little bit before he posted this on social media, expanding somewhat on this idea of fees being imposed. Listen to what he said there.
We've had 10 deals with these people, and so we're just going to hit them very hard. And we're going to keep the strait, and we'll probably run it. We'll become the guardian of the strait. Maybe we'll call it the guardian angel of the strait. And we should be reimbursed for that. When we do that, we're going to be reimbursed because the other nations are very wealthy. They're on our side. And we can't be expected to do that for nothing, unlike we had for many years. You know, we guarded the strait for 50 years more, and we never got paid for it. They made all the money, and the United States was just, they wouldn't. It's amazing. We never made. We guarded it for nothing, and now we're going to guard it, and we're going to get paid for guarding it.
Now, this idea of the U.S. charging fees in the waterway is something of a break from the administration's previous stance. The Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, just said a few months ago that this was an international waterway and that no country is allowed to charge tolls or fees on an international waterway. It's all part of this escalating standoff. You've already seen the price of oil start ticking back up. How the president plans to sort of extricate the U.S. and himself from this, I think at this point remains unclear.
It does seem that there is a scramble to try to restart mediation efforts. At least that was the case on the weekend. We did see Oman's foreign minister meeting with his Iranian counterpart in Oman, according to officials, trying to come to some sort of agreement on a mechanism for joint control over the Strait of Hormuz that would allow for vessels to travel safely through the key shipping route. But that, according to an Iranian foreign ministry spokesperson, has come to nothing, saying this deal that had been discussed at some level was not achieved due to the overt and covert pressure of the United States on Oman. And that pressure clearly is only ramping up. As you mentioned, Zain, we are seeing those attacks not only now targeting parts of southern Iran close to the Strait of Hormuz, but they are appearing to be moving deeper. And we have had some pretty stark warnings from Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson today. Take a listen.
Seeking justice and avenging the blood of the martyred leader and every Iranian who was injured or killed during the U.S. and Israeli military attacks is a fundamental principle and a demand shared by the public. The state has a clear responsibility in this regard. The foreign ministry is part of this process. At the international level, we will use every available legal and international mechanism, both to document these crimes and to pursue justice.
Now, in recent days, the U.S. Central Command has said that it has struck hundreds of targets. We saw at least 140 targets in Iran struck overnight Saturday into Sunday, according to the Central Command. And of course, as you mentioned, Zain, those strikes are continuing today into the afternoon local time in Iran. But in response, Iran has also been carrying out attacks targeting Gulf nations, allies of the United States, and military infrastructure in the region, reportedly allied to the U.S. military as well. Just today we have heard from Kuwait and Jordan, again saying that they have intercepted or detected missiles coming from Iran. The fear is that this will only continue, perhaps accelerate over the coming days, and that this may in fact detour all sorts of efforts at this current point to try to mediate a resumption to that memorandum of understanding, which, of course, for those parties to the memorandum of understanding, the hope was that that would lead to a lasting ceasefire agreement to be hammered out. But at this stage, it appears we are heading in a very different direction.
In the past, you've described the war with Iran as an existential fight, and you have warned that limited engagement will not force Iran to make concessions. Is that what we're witnessing right now?
Good to be with you, Wolf. You know, I hate being, there's only one thing worse than being a false prophet. It's being an accurate prophet. I think I speak for most Israelis in assessing that the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding signed between the United States and Iran, wouldn't result in an actual agreement between the two countries, that Iran would violate the agreement, certainly interpret it completely different, that the absolute maximum that the Iranians were willing to concede, was far below the minimum that the United States was willing to accept, and that eventually the Iranians would try to precipitate some kind of fight with the United States. There's sort of this scuttlebutt around it that the president wanted to drag his feet until after the November elections. Well, that's assuming that the Iranians are stupid and just going to sit there and do nothing. No, they do just what they're trying to do now, is pick a fight and get oil prices to rise, which would then impair the president and his party's chances of winning in November.
Both the U.S. and Iran are accusing the other of violating what's called the Memorandum of Understanding, the MOU. Are negotiations even possible, you think, Ambassador, at this point?
I think negotiations are possible. I don't think either country necessarily wants to go back to full-scale war. Certainly the United States does not want to, not at this stage, before those elections. And as oil prices have already started to rise in the United States, no, I think they want to keep a level of violence, a low flame, and keep the option for negotiations open. The president has said, I'm going to strike hard. I'm going to reimpose the blockade on the Straits. I'm going to take tolls for cargo going through the Straits, but I'm open for negotiation. And I wouldn't be surprised, Wolf, if this doesn't blow up entirely, that in the next couple of days you're going to see various actors, the Pakistanis, the Turks, calling for everybody to go back to the negotiating table. Meanwhile, Israel is going to remain on very, very high alert. The entire country is on high alert today for the possibility of renewed all-out warfare.
While I have you, Ambassador, I want to ask you about that incident involving U.S. Congressman Ro Khanna. He says Israel Defense Forces joined Israeli settlers to blockade him for more than an hour during a trip to the West Bank. The IDF denies that the soldiers took part in blocking the road. Ro Khanna is calling on the Israeli government to prosecute the soldiers and the settlers. What would you like to see happen?
I would think in general. Listen, again, I'm not a spokesman for the Israeli government right now. I think what is widely seen in the world is settler violence is not acceptable. It's causing a tremendous damage to the country in terms of certainly our public diplomacy. And I would like to see a far, far stronger hand in curbing that violence. I don't know what the details of what happened with Congressman Khanna. I don't. And it should be investigated, certainly. But we're dealing with a far broader problem here of a certain breakdown of Israeli law and control in Judea and Samaria, as we call it, the West Bank. And that is causing us immense harm and must stop.